She screamed from my backyard, "You can't lock the gate. The HOA says this pool is shared property." I froze mid-step, holding my toolbox, watching Karen's teenage son splash around in my pool again. The nerve. I didn't even belong to an HOA anymore. Ours was dissolved 3 years ago. But that never stopped her from pretending she ran the neighborhood. I walked closer, calm but boiling inside. "Ma'am, this is my house, my pool. You're trespassing." Karen stood up from the lounge chair like she owned the place, sunglasses glinting in the sun. "I am the HOA president," she said, waving a piece of paper that looked freshly printed. "And you're violating section, whatever. Community amenities must remain accessible." That paper wasn't even laminated. Last week, she'd taped one to my door that said I owed a $200 maintenance fine. I tore it up and thought it was over. But today, her husband and kids were here. Towels, coolers, loud music, the full takeover. I didn't call the cops. Not yet. I just stood there staring at them while they laughed and splashed, pretending I didn't exist. My hands clenched tighter around the wrench. Then her husband, Dave, shouted, "Lighten up, man, it's just water." Something in me snapped, but I didn't show it. Instead, I smiled. "You're right," I said slowly. "Just water." Karen rolled her eyes. "You can either cooperate or I'll report you to the HOA board." I leaned in a little. "Funny thing about that board," I said quietly. "It doesn't exist." For the first time, her fake smile faded. I could see confusion flicker behind her glasses. She glanced at her husband. He just shrugged. That's when my phone buzzed. A notification from my backyard security system popped up. "Motion detected, 3:07 p.m. I looked down, then looked back up at her. "You might want to leave before I check the footage," I said. Karen tilted her head, voice dripping with arrogance. "Go ahead. You'll regret making trouble with me." I didn't answer. I just walked inside, locked the sliding door, and smiled at the screen showing 4 angles of them trespassing on camera. Because this time I wasn't just going to call the cops. This time I had a plan. I waited until the sun dipped low and their laughter turned into that annoying echo that crawls under your skin. Karen's husband had the nerve to fire up my grill, flipping burgers like it was a community cookout. I could almost smell the audacity. Through the window I watched them. My phone kept recording every second. My neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, texted me, "They're in your pool again?" I replied with one word, "Yeah." Then I typed another line but didn't send it. Tonight, it ends. I stepped outside, quiet, controlled. Karen noticed first. "Oh, there you are," she said, fake cheerful. "We cleaned up last time, so don't make a scene." I nodded. "No scene," I said softly. "Just a question. Did you tell everyone I gave you permission to use my pool?" She smirked, looking around like she was in charge. "Of course, people like when neighbors share. It's called community spirit." "Community spirit," I repeated, stepping closer. "Or free vacation?" Her smile stiffened. "Don't talk to me like that. I could fine you for harassment." I laughed quietly. "Fine me? Karen, you forged an HOA notice. That's a felony, not a rule." Her face turned red. "Watch your mouth. I have influence in this neighborhood. You're new here. Don't test me." That's what she always said. Influence. But influence doesn't mean much when it's built on lies. So I pointed at the small white powder container on the patio table. "See that?" I said. "That's chlorine stabilizer. Keeps the pool clean." I paused for effect, watching her eyes dart to it. "But I added something special tonight." Her husband stopped mid-bite. "What do you mean special?" I smiled. "You'll see when the lights go off." For a moment, silence hung between us. Then Karen tried to laugh it off, waving her hand. "You're bluffing." Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't. But when the pool lights flickered blue and then bright green, their laughter died instantly. Karen screamed, "What the hell did you put in there?" I didn't move. "Just something that reacts with sunscreen and perfume," I said calmly. "Harmless, but visible." They looked down and the water around them was glowing faintly, shimmering like neon paint. It was harmless, sure, but it marked them. The powder had one simple purpose: to show who'd been trespassing. Karen scrambled out of the pool, dripping and furious. "You're insane, I'm calling the police." I smiled wider. "Please do," I said. "And when they come, I'll show them the footage." She froze again. Her voice shook. "Footage?" I lifted my phone, showing the live feed. HD, audio too. That was the first time she didn't have a comeback. Karen left that night dripping wet and shaking with rage. Her husband muttered something about getting a lawyer, but she just kept screaming, "You'll regret this," loud enough for the whole block to hear. I didn't care. For the first time in months, my backyard was quiet. The next morning, I woke to a knock on the door. Sharp, impatient. When I opened it, 2 police officers stood there. One tall, one new-looking, both serious. "Sir, we got a complaint," the taller one said. "Something about you threatening your neighbors with chemicals." I almost laughed. "You've got to be kidding me," I said, then noticed Karen standing a few feet behind them, arms crossed, fake tears in her eyes. "She put something in the pool," she said, voice trembling like a bad actress. "My kids could have died. He threatened us." I stepped aside, showing the backyard through the open door. "Officers, it's chlorine, and my cameras recorded everything. Would you like to see?" Karen's face twitched, but she stayed quiet. The new cop looked unsure. "Ma'am, did you have permission to use his pool?" Karen sniffed. "Of course, this is an HOA neighborhood. The community shares amenities." I smiled slightly. "Funny thing, there is no HOA." The taller cop frowned. "No HOA?" "No, sir. It dissolved 3 years ago. County records will show that." I handed him a printed document from my folder. I'd been ready for this day. He studied it, then turned to her. "Ma'am, this says the HOA was legally terminated in 2021. You can't enforce rules that don't exist." Her act cracked. "That's not possible. My husband and I pay dues." "To who?" I asked quietly. "Yourself?" The cop tried not to smile, but Karen's face turned pale. She pointed a shaky finger at me. "He's lying. He's trying to make me look crazy." I crossed my arms. "You're doing that just fine on your own." The taller cop finally sighed. "All right, ma'am. I think we're done here. Please leave this property." Karen's voice turned sharp, desperate. "You don't understand. He's dangerous. He threatened me." "Ma'am," the officer said flatly, "we saw the footage. He didn't threaten anyone, but you and your family trespassed." For a moment, she looked lost, like she'd been punched in the ego. Then she whispered, "You'll pay for this," and stormed off toward her car. I watched them drive away, thinking it was finally over. But later that night, when I checked my cameras, I noticed something. Someone had unplugged the back one near the fence. The timestamp, 11:43 p.m. I zoomed in on the grainy image just before the feed went dark. A shadow, a hand, and a small familiar gold bracelet, Karen's. I leaned back in my chair and muttered to myself, "So, we're not done yet." The next morning, I woke up to the sound of banging. Not knocking, banging. I threw on a shirt, opened the door, and there she was again. Karen, hair messy, phone in hand, pointing it at me like she was filming some courtroom drama. "You assaulted my property," she shouted. "You broke my fence and poisoned my pool filter." I blinked. "Your pool?" "Yes," she snapped. "You dumped that white powder into my system. My husband's sick because of you." I stared for a second, then realized what she was doing. She'd poured her own drama into reverse. "Karen, I haven't stepped near your house," I said slowly. "And you don't even have a pool filter like mine." She smirked. "The police are on their way." I looked over her shoulder, and sure enough, a cruiser was already pulling up. This time, 2 different officers. She'd moved fast. The older cop walked up. "Sir, we received a vandalism complaint." Karen jumped in before I could speak. "He's been harassing me for weeks. He poured chemicals into my property. I have video proof." I took a breath, calm. "Great," I said. "Let's see it." She pulled up her phone, opened a clip. But the second it started, my heart skipped. Because the footage was from my backyard. It was me walking near my pool pouring the powder. Except, she'd edited it. Cropped out the sound, the part where I clearly said chlorine stabilizer. She broke into my camera feed, I muttered. The cop looked unsure. Ma'am, where did you get this? Karen's eyes didn't blink. Neighborhood watch security, she lied smoothly. I stepped back, keeping my voice level. Officer, that video's doctored. I can prove it. My original files are time-stamped and they're stored in the cloud. I'll show you. But Karen wasn't letting go. He's lying again. He's a manipulator. She started crying on cue, clutching her chest. My kids are terrified of him. Please make him stop. The older cop looked at me, then at her. Sir, we just need to check your footage. Of course, I said. I walked them inside, pulled up the cloud backup. Every second matched perfectly, until the timestamp jumped to that same 11:43 p.m. Right there, I said, pointing at the blackout. That's when someone unplugged my camera. The cop frowned. Any idea who? I zoomed in again, and this time I froze the frame. The bracelet, her bracelet, gleamed against the moonlight. Karen's face drained of color. She took one small step back. That's not me, she said quickly. The officer leaned closer to the screen. Ma'am, that looks like your bracelet. I lost it days ago, she stammered. Sure, I said quietly. Probably while sneaking into my yard. Her mask cracked. You can't prove anything, she yelled, then turned and stormed out. The cop sighed, handed me a card. We'll file a report, sir. Keep your footage safe. Something tells me this isn't over. He was right, because when I checked my phone later that night, I saw something new. An email from an unknown address. Subject: Next time I won't just unplug the camera. I stared at that email for a long time. The message was short, but it hit like a punch. Next time I won't just unplug the camera. No name. No signature. Just that I didn't reply. I didn't even tell the cops. Instead, I walked outside and stood by the pool, staring at the water glowing faintly under the moonlight. My reflection looked calm, but inside I was a ticking bomb. That's when I heard a crunch behind me, someone stepping on gravel. I turned fast, but the yard was empty, or so I thought. Then my porch light flickered and I caught a shadow slipping between the trees near the fence. Karen? I called out, my voice steady. Nothing, just the hum of the filter. So I reached into my pocket and tapped the hidden switch on my phone case, one of the perks of my old job. A tiny signal blinked red in the corner of the yard. I'd planted motion sensors after her last stunt. If she came back, I'd know. Back inside, I opened a small metal box from my cabinet. Inside were an old badge, a folded letter, and a flash drive. I hadn't planned to use any of it again, but Karen had changed that. I plugged the drive into my laptop, and the security feed synced to a private server, the same one I used when I worked as a forensic tech for the county sheriff's office. That's the part she didn't know. An alert popped up almost instantly. Motion detected. Rear fence. Live. I opened the feed, and there she was. Karen in a dark hoodie, flashlight in one hand, a crowbar in the other. She was trying to pry open my gate. Unbelievable, I muttered. I hit record. Every click, every whisper captured in perfect clarity. Then she turned toward the camera, eyes glowing in the light, and whispered something that made my stomach twist. You think you can humiliate me online? Let's see how your house likes a little fire. She pulled out a small red can from her bag, lighter fluid. My heart pounded, but my body moved on instinct. I slipped out the back door, silent. The grass barely made a sound under my feet. She was crouched by the shed, pouring liquid near the wall. Step away from that, I said firmly. She froze, then turned slowly, fake calm. Oh, you're awake. Put it down, Karen, she laughed in a short, cracked sound. You ruined my life. Everyone saw that video. My husband's job, my kids. You did that yourself, I said, stepping closer. Walk away now before it gets worse. Worse? She snapped. You don't scare me. You're nobody, I sighed. Funny thing. I used to be the guy they called when nobodies broke the law. She blinked. What? That's when I pulled the small flashlight from my pocket and aimed it at her wrist. The light reflected off her bracelet and the same one from the footage. Smile for the real evidence, Karen, I said. Her eyes went wide. She dropped the can, stumbled back, and ran for the gate. But the second she touched it, the siren I'd wired to the motion sensor went off and a blaring, red strobe screaming through the night. Within minutes, my old buddies from the sheriff's department would be here, because before I'd stepped outside, I'd already called them. And for once, she couldn't fake her way out of this. The siren cut through the night like a warning from heaven itself. Karen froze, hands trembling, eyes darting around like a cornered animal. The red light from the motion alarm flashed across her face, catching every drop of guilt she tried to hide. Within minutes, headlights swept across my driveway, 2 patrol cars pulling up fast. The same tall officer from before stepped out, his hand already resting on his holster. Behind him, his partner carried a flashlight that cut straight through the darkness. "What's going on here?" the officer barked. I raised my hands slightly calm. "Caught her trying to set fire to my shed," I said, nodding toward the half-spilled can on the grass. Karen's voice shook. "He's lying. He planted that. He's obsessed with me." The officer didn't even look at her yet. He shone his light on the can, the crowbar, and the wet streak of lighter fluid near the wall. Then his beam landed on her bracelet glinting in the red alarm light. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "I'm going to need you to stay right where you are." Karen stepped back, panicking. "You don't understand. He's manipulating the cameras. He's dangerous." "Actually," I said, unlocking my phone, "the footage is uploading to the sheriff's database right now. Same system I used when I worked there." The officer turned to me sharply. "You worked for the department?" "Yeah," I said. "Forensics. 2 years in evidence management." Karen's jaw dropped. You're lying." I looked at her evenly. "You really should have done your homework before you tried to fake videos, Karen." The officer motioned for his partner to check my phone. Within seconds, the feed showed everything. Her creeping into my yard, the crowbar, the can, the lighter. Her voice crystal clear. "Let's see how your house likes a little fire." Karen's face went white. That's not me." "That's edited." "Ma'am," the cop said flatly. "It's live audio. You were caught on multiple angles." Her voice cracked. "No, you can't do this to me. I'm the HOA president." The officer raised an eyebrow. "There is no HOA, ma'am." "You've been told that twice." She looked at him, then at me, then back at the fence, and like she was deciding whether to run. But before she could move, the second officer stepped in front of her. "Ma'am," he said, "you're under arrest for attempted arson, trespassing, and harassment. Hands behind your back." The sound of the cuffs clicking shut was the sweetest sound I'd heard all year. Karen's voice turned desperate as they led her toward the car. "You think this is over?" "My husband, he knows people." I stepped closer, just enough for her to hear. "So do I said softly. "Except mine wear real badges." She glared through the window as they drove off, her face twisted between shock and hate. The yard was silent again. Smoke from the spilled lighter fluid drifted in the cool night air, but I didn't move. I just stood there watching the reflection of the police lights fade off the pool water. I should have felt relief. But deep down something told me she wasn't done yet. The next day felt too quiet. No shouting, no fake notices, no Karen pacing in front of my house with her phone out. Just the sound of sprinklers and wind. For the first time in weeks, I thought maybe, just maybe, it was finally over. But peace never lasts long in this neighborhood. That afternoon, a black SUV pulled into my driveway. A man in a suit stepped out, followed by Karen's husband, Dave. He looked nervous but angry, eyes darting everywhere but mine. The man in the suit had that slick confidence only lawyers or liars usually carry. "You must be Mr. Hayes," he said, shaking my hand like this was a business deal. "I represent the Jeffers family. I'd like to resolve this situation before it gets worse." I folded my arms. "Worse for who?" "For everyone," he said smoothly. My client, Karen, was emotionally distressed. She wasn't in her right mind. "We're prepared to drop any charges on your end if you agree not to press yours." I almost laughed. "She tried to set my house on fire." "And you want to settle?" Dave finally spoke up, voice cracking. "She didn't mean it, man. She's been under pressure. The HOA stuff. There is no HOA," I cut in. "You two made it up." Dave's face twitched. The lawyer quickly stepped forward. "Let's keep emotions out of this. You're a reasonable man. Think about your property value, your reputation. You don't want this going viral, do you?" That's when I realized something. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to threaten me, politely. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You're too late. It already went viral. The lawyer blinked. What? I held up my phone and played the news clip from earlier that morning. There it was on the local channel, Karen's mugshot, the arson attempt, and the footage I'd turned in. The anchor's voice said, "A suburban woman posing as an HOA president was arrested last night after attempting to burn down a neighbor's shed." Dave's shoulders sagged. The lawyer's smile cracked just slightly. "You leaked this?" he asked. "No," I said. "I sent it to the sheriff's media team. They handled the rest." Dave turned on the lawyer. "You said this would go away." "It will," the lawyer hissed, but his tone had lost its edge. "As long as Mr. Hayes agrees not to." I cut him off again. "Already did. I filed a restraining order this morning. She can't come within 500 feet of me or my property." Dave ran a hand through his hair, muttering something under his breath. "Man, you don't understand. She's not the only one who wanted this HOA thing. There are others." That made me pause. "Others?" He nodded, nervous. "A few of the neighbors. They've been using her to push people out. Buy properties cheap, flip them. She was just the loud one." I looked at him carefully. So Karen wasn't the boss. She was the front. He didn't answer, but the silence said everything. The lawyer pulled him toward the SUV. "That's enough, Dave. We're done here." As they drove off, I glanced at my phone again. A new text came in from an unknown number. It read, "You took down the wrong person. The HOA isn't dead yet." My thumb hovered over the screen, and for the first time since this started, I realized Karen might have just been the beginning. That message kept replaying in my head. "You took down the wrong person. The HOA isn't dead yet." By evening, the sky had turned a heavy orange, the kind that makes everything look like it's holding its breath. I sat on my porch, laptop open, scrolling through the files I'd pulled from my old forensic archives, the ones most people didn't even know existed. Karen's arrest had triggered something bigger. Anonymous emails started coming in, some supportive, some threatening. But one stood out. It had an attached spreadsheet. The sender called themselves NeighborX. The file listed addresses from my neighborhood, property transfers, strange maintenance fines, and signatures, all forged under the name of the Oak Ridge Homeowners Association. Except the signatory wasn't Karen. It was Councilman Raymond Briggs, a city official. I felt my pulse rise. It made sense now. The fake HOA wasn't just a control trip. It was a scam, a quiet way to pressure people into selling low, so connected buyers could flip the homes. Karen was just the face, the one crazy enough to enforce fake rules. I took a screenshot and sent it to my old supervisor at the sheriff's office. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. "Hayes," he said, voice tense. "Where did you get this?" "Anonymous tip," I said. "Looks like a cover operation. Karen's name is all over the notices, but the money leads to Briggs." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Stay inside. Don't talk to anyone. We've been trying to nail him for 2 years." I closed the laptop just as a black sedan rolled slowly past my house. Same make and model as the one from last week. No plates, no sound. It stopped at the corner for a second, then kept going. Yeah, they were watching. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, the security feed glowing faintly on my phone. Around midnight, headlights appeared again, this time pulling right into my driveway, but it wasn't the sedan. It was a marked sheriff's car. My old supervisor stepped out holding a file in his hand. "We got him," he said. "Your footage and the data you sent matched everything. Briggs is in custody." I stared at him, trying to process it. "So, that's it?" He nodded. "That's it. Turns out, Karen was getting paid to harass the homeowners who refused to sell. Briggs promised her a cut once the land deals went through." A strange calm washed over me, relief mixed with something deeper. "Justice, maybe. What happens to her?" I asked quietly. "She's talking," he said. "Looks like she finally realized who was using her." I looked toward the pool, the one that started it all. The surface, perfectly still under the moonlight. "She said something weird when they booked her," he added. "Told the detective he got tired of us using his pool. So he poisoned everything." I smirked. "Guess she wasn't wrong." He laughed, shaking his head. "You did good, Hayes, real good." When he left, I stood there a while longer, listening to the hum of the crickets and the quiet neighborhood that finally felt like mine again. I looked at the camera feed one last time and whispered, I didn't fight to own this land just to let someone take it with a fake rule. Then I shut off the lights, knowing something had ended tonight. Not just the scam, but the fear that came with it. And for the first time since moving here, the silence didn't feel like a warning. It felt like peace. Because when someone tries to control your land in America, I said softly to myself, you remind them, you're standing on freedom, not their property line. That's the end of I got tired of HOA Karen's family using my pool for free, so I sprinkled powder.